motion to recycle and chemistry?
I don't know.
You guys don't have that.
Can I have a motion to come out of executive session?
Make a motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Emiliani? Yes. Valari?
Yes.
Torriello?
Yes. Before we proceed, Councilor, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, we did not discuss contract negotiations during the executive session meeting because it was not on the agenda for a special meeting. And under Greenwich's ordinances, no business is to be transacted in a special meeting other than that specified on the agenda. So the closed session was limited to a discussion regarding pending litigation.
Which was advertised.
Which was advertised and is on the agenda.
With respect to that, can I have a motion authorizing resolution 2012-56, authorizing settlement of tax appeal by Target Court regarding Block 26, Lot 33.01, tax year 2011?
Make a motion.
Second. Any comment? Roll call.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Emiliani? Yes. Valari?
Yes.
Torriello?
Yes. And finally, call for a resolution 2012-55, which is the introduction of the Greenwich Township municipal budget for 2012.
Make a motion.
Second. Any comment?
I have comments. Couple things. As you know, the last meeting that we had, which was last week, I believe, was the third iteration, I believe, of the budget. And we hadn't had any discussion before seeing that third iteration. And I took some time this week to really delve into it. I sent an email. I'm sure you probably saw the response from our auditor, because I did have some questions. Did everyone see that response? Okay. Because I have some concerns about the proposed budget. So first, let me say I think we did a pretty decent job on the expenditures, with the exception of budgeting an extra $25,000 for the auditor. I think the fact that he contracted for 10% less than last year's auditor, I think we should hold him to that. He obviously bid on work. He should have understood the scope of the work. So I disagree with that additional $25,000. I also have a concern on the revenue side of the budget, and I did speak with Lorraine briefly. I think it was on Saturday, right? I came in and I talked to Lorraine. And it's my belief that the use of the one-time revenue of the $93,000 from escrow, I think it's really good that if we're able to use that, I think it's great. The lowering of the reserve for uncollected taxes of $105,000 concerns me to offset the emergency appropriation. And then budgeting nothing for capital reserve, and then no appropriation to pay back sewer surplus will have adverse effects in the future for our budgets. So a few things I think we need to think about. One is our tax revenues, I think, will be down since net tax valuations are down by $2 million from 2011 to 2012. Now, also, as we just heard earlier, we have several pending tax appeals, and we also have housing developments here in the township that are more than 20 years old, and I think we're all aware that there are some roads that are in dire needs of repair, and those repairs could get into the millions of dollars based upon what work needs to be done. So I'd like to understand a couple things. I have a few questions that I'd like to understand, and one is how much, and I guess this would be for you, Lorraine, how much of the 2011 appropriation reserve do you believe will lapse and turn into surplus for us for this year?
Probably less than 100,000.
Less than, because I think when you and I talked at the end of the year, it was like you thought we had like 80,000, and then there were transfers made, and
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a substantial amount.
and then do you know what the projection for surplus is for the end of this year, 2012?
It would depend on what the revenue collections are, but it's not going to be anywhere close to $400,000 probably.
Okay. And then did you, in the preparation of this budget, did we consider the difference of the net tax valuations?
Not globally, no.
Okay. Because I spoke with Eloise, and she said that our tax valuations in 2011 were $600,500,000. In 2012, it's down by $2 million because of a number of things, and I don't know if I'm able to say what those things are, but it's down by $2 million. So I think that's going to have an impact on our budget for this year. And then the other question I have is, in just your experience, what do municipalities usually budget for capital? Because we don't have anything budgeted in capital.
It would depend what your capital program is. There's really not one here in Greenwich.
But we have road repairs. I mean, John
You
has
have
submitted.
needed road repairs, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you have like an engineer's ballpark estimate for how much they are, or which roads can just be. I don't even know if you use.
So let me ask a question. We talked a little bit about this on Saturday. You are the CFO for Alpha. How much does Alpha put in their capital budget every year for roads?
Between $80,000 and $95,000.
All right, and we have nothing budgeted for this year, and we generally budget around $60,000. So a couple things. I know 3 years ago, Elaine, you budgeted, when we had a budget gap of 3.5 cents, we used sewer surplus. And I expressed a concern at that time that only a percentage of the residents pay into the sewer fund, but we did it anyway. And I think most of us voted for it. Last year, one of the main arguments for you voting no to our budget was that there was no plan to pay back sewer monies. Yet I don't see anything in the plan this year to do so. So you were one of the main architects of this budget along with Lorraine, and I'm wondering why there's no repayment to the sewer fund since that was paramount to you last year. So I'm wondering if you can explain why we don't have something on the table to start paying that back.
Well, what's paramount to me, and I'll be honest with you, having to figure out how to begin bridging the gap of $558,000 in a budget series here was paramount to me, so that there was a 0% tax increase. As we move forward, as I explained to you last year and the year before that, if in fact we have dollars that are unidentified collected funds, that we would put them towards the sewer surplus to make up the difference. And as we get those unidentified funds and we put them towards that budget, we will be announcing when those things are going to be put back into the sewer utility. Last year, as I recall, when I brought this up, you made no attempt to even answer my question. You went off and voted on your own. You didn't even answer me. You just overlooked the fact that I even brought this up. So out of respect, I'm answering you at this point in time. That's the best that I'm going to say.
So in other words, I can assume you'll be voting no on this budget because there's nothing in here to pay back sewer?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But what I said was that the unidentified funds that come into this township will be designated towards the sewer utility, because we were not able to budget to close the gap on $558,000.
Okay.
Which $100,000 you took out of the emergency appropriation, which I also voted against.
Right. Well, let me just,
No,
I just
no.
want to say, well,
Just-
you mentioned 100,000, are you finished? You mentioned a $100,000 emergency appropriation, and as you know, that was done for legal fees that we had no control of, and I know that there was a sentiment that we didn't budget correctly, that we knew about these fees, and at the time when the budget was done, when we put $150,000 in for legal, we felt that that was more enough to cover it because the case was nearing the end, the appeal was not filed on time, and we felt that that legal case was going to be closed. So there was nothing done to inappropriately formulate last year's budget that resulted in that emergency appropriation. But let me just finish. Although I feel raising taxes should be the last resort, it's not fiscally responsible to keep the tax rate flat for 2012. And it's also my understanding that for municipal budgets, it should be done in a manner that does not adversely affect future budgets. This budget proposal kicks the can down the road, and I know I've heard you guys say that numerous times, for next year to the tune of 3.5 to 4 cents, burdening, and that's assuming the budget remains flat. And as you know, it won't remain flat because we have contractual obligations, and year over year we've had increased health care and pension costs. So for that reason, I have some great concerns about this budget.
Well,
Any other
I
comments?
will address the increased healthcare and the pension costs are all in this budget. So as we go each year, we take into consideration the fact that these increases do exist. And there is no such thing as kicking the can down the road because you've done it for the last 2 years.
I don't think so. We didn't
I know.
have, we didn't have.
I know so. $558,000 in
There
the
wasn't,
budget gap?
well, Elaine,
Oh,
there
yeah.
wasn't a $550,000 gap, so.
Any other comments?
So we have a one-time, I don't know what the right word is to use for this, the $94,000 is just a one-time thing, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we wouldn't have that next year to add into the budget, I think.
No, we will not be there next year.
All right. And then we reduced the reserve fund collector taxes, right? That's been
Correct.
reduced. So does that have an impact for next year's budget also?
It has the potential to not realize as much in surplus as you would have generated if we would have used a much lower collection rate. It's based upon other things, the tax increases for the county, for the school. It also takes into consideration your tax collection rate from the prior year. The tax collection rate here in Greenwich last year was wonderful. It was 98.06, I believe, and that is just phenomenal. It's a great collection rate. Because that's so high, sometimes people will back off 1%, 1.5% from that to use to divide by the total amount of income you need to generate. The difference between that 1.5% and what you literally need to raise is where your reserve for uncollected taxes is actually calculated. In this year, it was dropped to like 97%, so it was right around 1%, so it was still in the realm of a very acceptable conservative decrease, but you could have gone more conservatively, had a higher reserve for uncollected taxes, and potentially increased your surplus a little bit more over the course of 2012.
So Lorraine, what would you have felt more comfortable with as far as that, the lowering of the uncollectible reserve for taxes?
I'm not necessarily uncomfortable where it is now, but the expenditures will have to be watched very carefully throughout the year. I'll be giving you, everyone, monthly budget reports, and each department is going to have to be looked at very carefully so that if our revenues do not come in, and you'll have revenue reports as well, if the revenue collections do not come in as we anticipate, then we'll have to curtail some of the appropriations. We won't be able to spend everything that we want to, just so that we do definitely generate surplus so that you have a little cushion for next year as well.
My concern.
Which is fiscal responsibility. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, that's okay. The concern that I have, and you know, and I think what was done is good. You know, when we come back and say there's no taxes and all that stuff that's going to be raised, that's a good thing. But you know, I'm looking down the line also. My concern is that for next year, if some of these tax appeals that are being brought forward to the township, if they should win on their end, you know, and I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have, but it's going to have some type of an impact with the township. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
You know, so then, if we look, if we looked at that we have to make cuts somewhere, the only place that I see where cuts can actually be made is probably our police departments. That.
I mean, every department can contribute to
Yeah,
something.
I would make that assumption.
No, but and you're right, but I'm also looking down the line too, you know, with this, and that's one of the, you know?
We may have other revenue streams, but it's something that Lorraine has to work on. Something that's still left uncompleted and unfinished from the financial department. So there's possibility of some additional funds going into next year.
So then the other thing I would bring up then is that is it, and again, you know, we all pay taxes in this town, you know, with the exception of you. You know, we all pay taxes.
Point that out.
Yeah, no, that's not a dig. I'm sorry. You know? I'm sorry. That wasn't that. You know, my concern then is that if we have zero tax increase for this year, the possibility for next year is that we could have a huge tax increase. Is that correct?
That would again be up to you to curtail that increase. I myself have a preference of having at least a 1 cent increase every year. It just gives you a little bit to play with, but I completely understand that this is a very severe economic time, and you want to do everything you can to lessen the burden on your taxpayers, and if you can do that this year, then that's great.
But what happens next year?
Yeah,
It's
there are
5 or
some
7
one-time
cents.
revenues, and, you know, maybe there'll be different one-time revenues next year that we weren't aware of this year. There's other escrow funds that are, I don't call them sketchy, because that sounds like it's an inappropriate thing, but there's some additional escrow funds,
Yes.
right, that we may be able to correct,
Exactly.
and that could be a substantial
correct.
amount
You know,
of money.
even in 2008, Elaine, when you borrowed the 200,000 from surplus when you were up for re-election the last time.
Please stop politicizing.
Hold on a second. I want to say something. We had a 1 cent increase that year.
2009.
For 2009, I'm sorry.
Yes.
2009. Now we're 3 years later, you're up for re-election again, and we have smoke and mirrors in this budget, and I'm very concerned because it is not fiscally responsible to move things around in a budget so that you have no tax increase, which, like I said, I prefer no tax increase, but what is it going to do next year? It's going to be devastating when we have to go out there and say 5, 6, 7 cent tax increase.
I say
So that you're
don't.
able to keep a 0 tax increase
Yeah.
for this year.
That's an assumption that you're making.
Well, it's not-
Number two, we are cleaning the financial department up. We still have appropriations that we have to unmask where they belong and what the things are. Secondly, you're right, in 2009, I did increase one cent because the municipal monies from the state of New Jersey were reduced by that 1 cent. I would have kept a 0 increase then too. We had municipal aid ripped away from us at the 11th hour. We had no choice. And as you recall, I mean, I did say that. In these last 2 years, I voted no for your budget because there have been things in there that I disagreed with, and I explained to you why. And I did not sit here and interrogate you like you're interrogating me.
I don't
if
think
you want to
I made a
increase the
statement.
budget, vote no. If you want a tax increase, vote no. And you go right ahead and
Oh,
do
I
that.
didn't say that I want a tax increase.
Well, that's what you're arguing.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what you're arguing. You're
What
saying
I'm
that this
saying
is
is-
political, and I'm
No,
saying that
I think
it
it's
is
Let's have one person at a time, please.
a responsible thing to do, because after review and going into the finance department and looking at everything that was in there, we have had to make changes that severely showed us that things were not being done appropriately.
Well, as I've said before, I just totally disagree with
Well,
that, and I'll
that's
continue to
your
disagree
prerogative.
with that, because that goes back to the same thing, the distortion and the distortion on this. So I'm concerned, and I'm going to go on record as saying I am very concerned that we are putting forth a budget that has no increase, and the way this is being maneuvered is not good. It's not good. I have been through this budget numerous times over the last week, and I have some great concerns that we are lowering the unreserved tax rate, the collectibles, and the $93,000 of one-time revenue could possibly be spread over more than 1 year. We could have taken $100,000 emergency appropriation and spread it out, requested it to spread it out over 2 or 3 years. But no, we took it all in 1 year. We're taking the $93,000 all in 1 year. And next year, it's going to be devastating to the taxpayers.
You wouldn't have
Okay,
even known
okay,
that $93,000
is
was
there-
there if we
wait,
didn't do the research.
Are there any other comments? Are there any other
Yeah, I
comments?
just want to finish up. For me, I just think that, I think it would be prudent for the township, for us, to at least implement a 1 cent or 2 cent tax increase so that we protect ourselves for next year. And I think, what is that, like $27 or something like that, on $27,000 rates, something to that effect per year. And again, I don't believe, I don't want a tax increase either. I live here, I gotta pay taxes also. But I think in order just to protect us, and when I say us, I mean the township residents, I think that would be a prudent thing to do. Going down the line.
Any other comments?
Can I just make a point of clarification? An emergency, a true emergency that you would declare in your budget, that legally has to be raised 100% in the next year. That's not something that you can spread out over. There's other emergencies that you can repay over a 5-year period, but those are like a recodification or tax maps or
I
something.
thought
to-
for this
to
one,
that
I was told that we could have done the same thing with this $100,000.
No, this is a budget emergency,
Right.
it's a different chapter emergency, and that has to be raised 100%.
But the $93,000 we would be able to spread over
Yes, yes, you could.
more than 1 year.
Yes, you could.
And we didn't have to lower the uncollectible tax reserve account as much as we did. I heard you said that you would have felt a little bit more comfortable had there been, it had been lowered
Yeah,
less.
You could have used a different percentage of collections to.
Because that
to
coupled,
force that to be.
because that coupled with possibly lower tax revenues as a result of the net tax valuations being lower, I think we are really, it's going to be a double whammy.
Okay, is there any other comments?
And then a question for Lorraine. The $94,000 that was in escrow money, is that a definite for us, or do we still have to go through the state? Has the state approved it for us to take it, or?
It's an insertion of a special revenue, and there are 2 certifications as well as additional documentation that have to be filed to the state to request them to allow us, because it's a new uncharted revenue. It's not something that we have a history on to show.
And what is your confidence in that happening?
I would say at least an 80% chance of it.
Still, if they're fairly confident about it as well.
Yeah, the auditor felt good about it.
Are there any other comments?
Well, what happens if they say no?
Then we can include that revenue, and you can either restart your budget process, not literally restart it, but you can find an alternate source to either cut that 93,000 to increase taxes, or to find another source of revenue.
But like you said, there's possibility that there's additional revenue.
Are there any other comments? Okay, if there are no other comments, I would just like to thank both you, Lorraine, for your hard work, and a special thanks to Deputy Mayor Emiliani. And I understand, and I've heard here today from some, an expressed discomfort in passing a budget that does not have a Pavlovian response of a tax increase. And I understand that, particularly in the state of New Jersey, many elected officials are simply uncomfortable in going down uncharted territories of fiscal responsibility and making tough decisions and actually balancing a budget in ways other than on the traditional back of the taxpayers. And I'm very proud and excited about this budget. It is really a culmination of a lot of hard work and sacrifice, including sacrifice from all departments, and cooperation, including the cooperation from Chief Guzzo, who understood really the severity of the financial situation that we were placed in. We were handed a $558,000 budget gap. We were handed a $100,000 debt that under the law had to be repaid this year, that was spent last year. And in this budget, and in the detailed analysis through Lorraine and Elaine, we know for certain that the $100,000 appropriation last year was absolutely, without certain, not necessary, because we found $94,000 that was there last year that was really your money, the taxpayer, that was really improperly thrown on this year's budget. That notwithstanding, through the hard work of everyone, the cooperation of the chief in reduction of overtime and other efforts, we have delivered on our promise and pledge to be fiscally responsible and pass a budget that does not automatically go to a Pavlovian tax increase. And I just want to add that there was much reference today by Tanya of some of her concerns, and to be fair to the residents of Greenwich, particularly since they're paying for the report, I'm going to have the response of the auditor, Robert Morrison, posted on the web page so that and everybody can go see where on all of Tanya's raised concerns, the auditor provides a detailed response indicating in writing that the concerns are not legitimate, and for that reason, as well as others, I'm going to make a motion
You already did.
I'm not finished with my-
To adopt.
You already have a motion on the table.
No.
Oh, we have a
You
motion?
have a resolution on the table,
Oh.
you're in discussion now.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not-
so roll call then.
No, I'm not ready. I
No,
have
you
another
made your comment.
Well,
Roll
I have
roll
another
call,
comment.
please. Roll-
Wait, I would recommend that we have the full deliberation before the roll call.
So, Joe, you know, I didn't know that you were going to get into detail on the auditor's response to my questions. I think it's important to make sure that you post my questions as it relates to his response. And I don't agree that he said that there was, I don't know what word you used, something about what, can you just repeat what you said?
No,
Well,
make,
okay.
no, make your comment.
Okay, so the point is, the auditor didn't necessarily agree that this was fiscally responsible, this budget. Basically, what he said was, he's not going to comment on policy decisions that are made by what he called management or the governing body. That's really what he said.
Okay, well,
So-
again, for the
think it
resident,
should be
rather than
posted.
listen to someone characterize what is said,
Correct.
we will post it on the webpage so you can read it yourself. Roll call, please.
Perez.
This is for the vote on the budget,
This is
Yes.
the vote for the introduction of the budget.
and we're not considering a 172 cent at all, right?
Roll call, please.
No.
Siegel.
No.
Miliani. Yes. Valori.
Yes.
Coriello.
Absolutely, with an enthusiastic yes. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make your motion. Excuse me, were you making a motion for the website?
That's not,
You
No,
have,
I'm we're posting it.
you have,
And I will post, I will post it.
there is one more item on the agenda.
you have public comment listed.
Oh,
Payment of invoices.
oh, thank you, I'm sorry, thank you. Can I have a motion to pay invoices?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Perez.
Yes.
Siegel. This is
What?
for payment of bills.
Oh, yes.
Miliani. Yes. Valori.
Yes.
Coriello.
Yes. Motion to adjourn?
You have public comment listed.
You have a public comment period too?
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But before we do that, I just want to say to her, I apologize. I didn't mean that in any way, shape, or form to, you know, to, as a backslap or anything like that, when I made the comment about that you
no, you're okay. I was just
Okay, I just want to.
I don't think anybody took it out.
Okay.
No,
that's
no,
all. Thank you.
I was just giving you my.
Okay.
It came across, I think, as it was a joke.
Yeah, it's all now, yeah.
And I'm sorry, thank you. Motion to open up public comment?
Make the motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone wishing to make public comment?
Angelo Trail, 729 Jackson. A few words about the budget.
I don't think it's on,
It's just
Angela.
on.
Is it working? I'm just putting it down.
We go through this every
yeah,
month.
every time. Well, it's picking up. It's picking up on the, so if you just
Is it
talk
picking
loud
up?
enough, it's picking up on the recording.
Okay. Okay, a few words about the budget. As a taxpayer, I guess it feels good that there won't be an increase from the township side of the budget. But I have to say that the way that you got here gives me pause. The pause that it gives me is that in a period where people are walking away from their mortgages and homes, we have gone to a less conservative reserve for taxes. It sounds like, as Tanya says, kicking the can into next year to me, which is what I thought we were going to stay away from. The person I would like to compliment, though, is Mike Finelli. If it wasn't for Mike coming up with the proofs for $93,000 in escrow, which go back 10 or 15 years, then I guess we'd be out that money too. It seems like whenever the council doesn't have the gumption to make the needed cuts, our professionals always come through. As a matter of fact, Mike found another $150,000 in DOT grants that apparently Elaine missed in 2008 when she was mayor. Oh, and by the way, what happened to reducing the sewer shortage? I guess you forgot about that. Talk about sewer. a couple years ago, Mike and Grace also found a whole strip mall of sewer customers that you missed, Elaine, since you were on the sewer council. I don't think they were ever acknowledged for that. Don't forget about the chief. This year, when he needs another officer, he unselfishly agreed to cut back in overtime. And I think you did compliment the chief.
And we did, and I think that's the problem with you reading a prepared statement rather than paying attention. But you
No,
continue.
and I did. I just admitted that. I just admitted that.
Okay, continue.
I'm sure he'll be back if he needs more. But what if there's a big emergency? We're seeing Bob's Cares and Christmas cakes on the news all the time. These are the choices we're making. Cutbacks in our security and cutting the reserve, our main source of revenue. Our professionals are like gold. We should value them, not use them and throw them away like disposable tissues, like some of the loyal ones we've had in the past. We can play with our reserves, but what do we do when times get tough? Thank you.
Any other public comment? Motion to close public comment?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second, okay.
Can I just have one comment about the $150,000 AJDOT?
Let's just take the vote on closing the public comment first.
All in favor?
Well, aye. Okay.
I guess you must have misunderstood the comment, because it wasn't about Mike Finelli finding something we didn't have. It was about the invoices that may not have been sent or clustered in an area that we were receiving the grant. You're not out $150,000. Over the past 2 years, those invoices have been billed to this town and not separated to go towards the grant. You obviously didn't know what you were talking about.
Is this a discussion?
I'm not saying another word.
Is this going to be
not a political debate.
Well, you're making
or
it a
anything.
discussion.
No. You've made it a political thing because you don't understand what you're talking about.
Okay, motion to close.
So who dropped the ball?
Sure.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.